anyone has any questions, the microphone is right here. Please line up and introduce yourself and ask a question directed at one or however many.
Hi, my name is Danielle. I actually have a question, I believe, for Ms. Budkie, but maybe everybody can answer it. If our taxpayer dollars are being used in such deplorable quantities to fund things that we don't believe in, is there some way that we could get an exemption or some sort of tax credit under the First Amendment?
I'd love to.
I don't know if there is such a way. I'd like that with my tax dollars.
Sorry, Danielle. Short answer, no. There's no way to do it. I mean, people who oppose war have tried doing this, and war tax resistors, they go to jail rather than pay taxes. But the government does not allow you to pick and choose where your taxpayer dollars go.
What about under religious freedom?
You don't have that option, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think they figure if you use the resources, you have to pay.
Hi, my name is Amy O'Darrow. First of all, I honor so much the work that you're doing. It's all three of you. It's mind-boggling when I really think of what it takes for you on a day-to-day basis to do what you're doing. And I'm sorry for forgetting your name, the woman who spoke to the milk issue. I'm forgetting your name. The question is directed towards you. So I'm curious, when you're talking about where the milk expansion is going into all these cultures where the lactose intolerant, so you're really looking at a threat to human health. What are the organizations that are working on this looking at taking that maybe as one of the leading things to eliminate that whole expansion of milk consumption? Does that question make sense?
Right. Do you mean should we sort of focus on that as an argument?
Well, I don't want to say you should, because I don't want to suggest to not put the animal importance, out there. But because humans are humans, and we often look at ourselves as the most important, I'm just curious about how you work with something like that to potentially move the work forward with great velocity.
Right. So the first thing is that at this point, I'm not totally sure that the fact that people are lactose intolerant means that the effects of drinking meat and milk are, much more extreme or terrible. So for me, the question of lactose intolerance is very interesting. Not so much because I think that, milk is poisonous for people who are lactose intolerant, because concretely a lot of people drink it and it doesn't seem to be so much worse than for people who aren't drinking it. What's really interesting about lactose intolerance is that it highlights just how powerful the West generally, but also certain institutions and authority figures are in telling people what they should be consuming. So much so that people aren't listening to their bodies anymore or saying, well, we were fine without milk for thousands of years. So it's really more interesting at that level. I don't know that it's precautious to sort of jump to the conclusion that lactose intolerance is going to be, it's damaging, but that it's this, poison for lactose intolerant people. But the way that we want to talk about this in San Francisco is to highlight the fact that milk in schools is, first of all, about profit, and second, it's there because people are culturally obtuse. And so it is going to be a big part of our argument. This is all the more evident in San Francisco, where we have a minority-majority school system. So in San Francisco, because of the economic inequality, there are almost no white children in public schools. 89%, if I remember correctly, of children in public schools are children of color, and all the white children are in private schools. And so the question of lactose intolerance really highlights just how absurd this model is. We have, this model of children for milk for all children that we would, of course, oppose for any child. But the question of lactose intolerance just allows us to communicate to others just how absurd it is, and how what's being fed to children is not based on science. It's not based on a genuine concern of what's best for them. It's just based on the sort of, culturally formed idea.
Okay, thank you.
And I am the bearer of bad news, but we have run out of time on this panel, so if we can have one speaker out of the folks here,
Could
by
I?
all means, yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sorry, the man in front of you.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my question is to Mr. Shapiro. So you talked about how the purity of certain the vegans talking about the purity in the movement is affecting us. As a person who's been pretty much new to activism, I just want to learn. This is something that concerns me because I've also been hearing that animal welfare does not necessarily end up in animal liberation. So, for example, we tell them, we tell them the battery cages are going to be run out in the next 10 years, and who follows up after 10 years? Is there been any certain timeline we keep up, and then we follow up with them, we make sure, and then after all these cages are being removed, do we make sure that the animal exploitation ends? It's just not welfare.
Great question, thank you. I didn't catch your name though.
Oh, my name is Pradeep.
Pradeep, cool, thanks Pradeep, I appreciate it. So welcome, you say you're new, it's a raging, discussion that has been going on for decades, so you'll get an enormous amount of literature to read about it if you would like. At the same time, I'll tell you a quick story. Think about the plight of Black Americans. As chattel slavery was raging for centuries, and then you had certain laws that related to the treatment of slaves, and you had the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, Reconstruction, civil rights, voting rights, affirmative action, even to the point today where we have a black president, yet there's still a lot of way to go. Imagine if somebody in the 13th Amendment banning slavery would have said, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't guarantee voting rights. No, this isn't enough. What do you think would have happened? Like, progress tends to beget progress. Social progress tends to be incremental in its nature. And so I think for most people who look at let's just take the meat industry's reaction to us, what they are really concerned about are things like, yes, certainly reducing demand for their product, very, very concerning to them, but they're also really concerned about their common practices becoming criminalized, like battery cages, and they fight it vociferously. They spend millions trying to combat it, and the groups that are waging those campaigns are the groups that end up bearing the brunt of their attacks. And so I think if we just look at what they seem to be concerned about, it seems like they're concerned about incremental progress. Generally, if you seek all or nothing, you tend to get nothing. And so the saying goes, you don't go from A to Z without going through 24 other letters first. That may be relevant for a lot of social movements, perhaps animals included. Thank you very much.